All right, good morning. I am so excited to be here this morning. I'm going to share my screen really quickly so we can see this. There we go. Make it official.
Hi, everyone.
Good morning. We have Michelle Silverthorn here with you this morning. This is the Legal Wellness and Belonging webinar series, session 3, Overcoming Institutional Bias During a Pandemic. I'm Monica Phillips, the founder of Sparkplug Labs. And my mission is to create space where everyone can be seen, heard, and valued, where everyone belongs, and where everyone is paid and promoted equitably. So it is
all
perfect.
Great things, Monica.
Thank you. And just, I am so honored to get your time, Michelle, because I love the work you do and your insights and research and training is phenomenal. So Michelle Silverthorn is the founder and CEO of Inclusion Nation. She has a book coming this summer. It's called How Great Leaders Can Change the World for Good. And I cannot wait. It's going to be practical with case studies and really spot on how to make your organization do good in the world. Michelle founded Inclusion Nation on the belief that diversity and inclusion needs a new voice for a new generation. She's a recognized organizational diversity expert and in-demand diversity speaker. She works with clients in all industries to design spaces centered on courage, belonging, and authenticity. She equips her audiences across the country with the knowledge and skills to finally move forward on diversity and inclusion. She's a graduate of Princeton University and the University of Michigan Law School. She practiced law at 2 large law firms in New York and Chicago, and then transitioned into the education field, where she trained thousands of professionals in person and online about implicit bias, diversity, and inclusion, and millennials in the workplace. She's written numerous articles. She has an incredible TEDx talk you can find by Google, or I'll post, I think it's posted on my website. If not, I'll make sure it's there. And she's originally from the Caribbean. She grew up in the Caribbean and now lives in Chicago with her husband and their 2 daughters. So welcome, I'm so glad you're here.
I love that intro. Thanks, Monica. I'm so glad that you invited me. And I look forward to having our conversation here.
Great. So I'm going to take this slide down now so that I can see you better. And if you have questions, please, or you want to interact with others, you can put them in the chat window. And if you want us to send a message to everyone, make sure that you select all panelists and attendees in the drop down. Otherwise, only Michelle and I will see it. And I'll do my best to keep an eye on that chat window. So talk to us about institutional bias. How does an organization go about recognizing it? And how is bias impacting the decision about who stays and who goes now that we have, we're in the middle of something that I have never experienced before. Like most of us haven't seen this with the furloughs and the layoffs and the drastic changes in even how we work and what work is.
Right. I think we think about, and hi, everyone who's listening in now, and if you're listening on the recording later on, I want to make sure that you're okay, that when you wake up in the morning, that we are practicing, what is it that I'm grateful for today? Because as Monica and I both know, and I'm sure a lot of you know, this is hard. And it is hard no matter who you are. It is hard if you're single. It's hard if you're coupled. It's hard if you have kids. It's hard if you don't have kids. It's living on your own. And it's especially hard if you have this entire idea of what work has been and what work should do. And you had this great dream and this great plan of what your career was going to look like. And then all of a sudden, it's like a car crash, right? What's happening right now is just, we were on a plan, we were on a track, we were going places, and now deal with what's happening next. And amid all of the sick and the sadness and the sorrow and the illness, I want to make sure that people are doing okay. And I really, check in with your people, check in with strangers, check in with people who you haven't talked to in a few months, and really just make sure, are you okay? And a question I always ask in my webinars when I do these with my clients is, what are we grateful for today? If you wake up in the morning, what are you grateful for? And so with that, thinking about the companies a lot of us are working in and the organizations that we're working in, what's going to be the next step for them? We don't even know what the world is going to look like a week from now, much less 6 months from now. But the work that I do suggests that when it comes to minorities and women, especially in the workplace, when we have considerations of layoffs. When we look back at track records of work and we say, well, from February to August, person A was doing great and he was still killing it and he was doing awesome. And person B, she kind of slowed down a lot, you know? She wasn't able to turn up for these meetings. She wasn't able to call in or check in or dial in, you know, she wasn't really getting her work done. And from that level, if we're just looking at what's been done and what's happening this month, the next 4 months, it's really going to look like person A is a lot better at working than person B is. And that is when we have to think about what kind of biases are at play, not just in our organizations, but in the society at large. And so when we talk about institutional bias, I'm not just talking about individual peer-to-peer, person-to-person bias. We all know that exists. We can talk about the bias that you have for people in your in-group. You can talk about the bias that you have for people who are like you, the bias that you have when you want someone to confirm an original opinion that you've already had of that person, confirmation bias. When you tell someone, oh, well, they're actually really good because you think people like that have always been good. And so when someone does really good work, you're like, oh, well, that's because someone like him is going to do good work. And that's what attribution bias is. But when someone who looks like me, who may not have that bias of being super competent or, you know, super qualified, does really good work, the bias is, well, she got lucky that time. So when I say individual biases, that's what I mean. Institutional biases are different, right? You bring in all individual biases and you put them into these organizations that have been developed and structured in a way to really promote an in-group, to really promote one kind of group to be rising to the top. How white men, because that's what we're talking about, how they socialize, how they interact, how they deliver feedback, who they hire, what schools they recruit at, and on and on and on and on. And the assumption that some of us are going to have people at home to take care of our children, that we're going to be able to leave our work lives separate from our personal lives. And on, these institutional biases get reinforced in our feedback mechanisms, in our assignment mechanisms, in our compensation mechanisms. And so when we think about institutional bias, that's what I want us to think about. How did we design these workplaces to benefit and privilege one group and to exclude and to limit success of another group?
So for leaders who are wanting to create space for everyone to thrive, how do they approach this? Because, we both have significant backgrounds in the legal space, but across organizations, I know that leaders are challenged with this decision.
Right.
And what do they need to identify to make sure that they're creating space for everyone to thrive now?
Well, I think right now, when we're doing in the middle of this pandemic and we're in the middle of this crisis, what I really would like leaders to do for, you know, the immediate future is to focus on inclusion. I would like you to recognize what are the barriers that are preventing some of your workers and some of your employees from really succeeding right now. Recognizing that success and how we've been defining success is not going to look the same for the next 4 months as it's been looking for the past 7 years. So just start with that. When you have your meetings, when are you shuttling your meetings for? What times are they at? Are these necessary? Are you requiring people to get onto Zoom? Are you making them do video meetings when they don't have to? When you start your meetings, what expectations are you setting? When you talk with your clients, and I know a lot of our law firms are talking with their clients right now, what expectations are you setting for the clients? If you're a client, what expectations are you having for your law firm? So continuing to understand, like, what effect will not peak performance have right now as we continue on with this. As a leader and as a law firm leader, what I really would like you to do in the short term is continue figuring out how are you and your team and your people going to survive together for the next 4 months, together for the next 6 months. People have joined onto your firm, onto your community because they believe in you and they believe in the work. So don't let that slide. Don't stop doing that. And then that goes particularly for people of color, minority people, people who feel like they haven't really belonged in that workplace in the first place. Reach out to them, figure out what extra work they need, help that they need, access that they need, resources that they need. Keep on including them in the spaces that they have been feeling they've been excluded at the whole time, because a lot of us are working from home and we don't have that community. And when you are the only, and when you are the first, and when you are alone, it is really, really hard. So short term, that is what I want them to do. And in the long term, Monica, you know what I say? I mean, it's all about the data. We have to look at the data. We have to look at the numbers. Look at the numbers in your law firm. Look at the numbers in your organization. I mean, I can show you the numbers now if we want to talk about numbers. I have a lot of slides on what data is showing us for who is succeeding and who is not succeeding in the legal profession. When you look at the data for your organization, for your law firm, for your departments, for your practice groups, for your levels, who is rising to the top and who is not, and where does that divergence start?
Can we take a look at that? I would love to see that.
Gosh, I love data, Monica. Why?
I love the data. You have some incredible data, and I think it's really relevant to say what hasn't been working, and now here we are. What's it going to take to make this right?
So let me see if I can pull up the screen. All right. So if you've ever seen me talk before, okay, can you see that the data?
Yep. Yeah.
All right. So a lot of people who see me talk before listening on this. If you haven't, but thinking through, I'm not going to go through all these slides because I'm happy to do this whenever you need for a webinar, but I just want to go through really quickly what the data looks like. 87% of lawyers were white 10 years ago, 67% were men. In 10 years, and remember, those have been 10 years, by the way, where we are coming out of recession and going into a booming economy. And this might be what it looks like again 10 years from now, but 85% are white, 65% are men. Again, think about who starts as summer associates in our intern class, and then who actually stays and succeed in that class. That's what our numbers look like. We have 47% summer associates are women when they come in, 23% law partners, 9% minorities, 3% minority women. And it goes on again. This is what I used to use when I do my talks. I talk about, look at these attractive lawyers that we all have in our firms, right? But you look at these numbers, 11.69% are Asian associates, 3% are Asian partners, LGBTQ Black partners, Black associates, Latinx associates, Latinx partners. And then the numbers that make me the saddest of all are these, like looking at Asian woman partners, Latina woman partners, Black woman partners. These are our numbers for our law firms. 0.68%. I mean, I graduated law school in 2008. If you had told me that 0.68% of large law firm, and this is major national firms, if you had told me that this is the percentage, this is my likelihood of success, what am I going to think? Am I actually going to succeed in these companies? Am I actually going to succeed in these law firms? And then you look at these numbers, 77% of our partners are male, 91% are white. I also love this one. This one's from McKinsey. It's what we call, look at the narrowing of the gap. You start out with even-ish levels between men and women, higher levels of men of color and women of color, right? But then it narrows and it keeps narrowing. And then you get to that level where we have the white men who are partners in our law firms are this big. And then everyone else goes like that. And what I tell clients when we have these conversations is, you can continue to do this. We can continue to do this, and we're going to come back and we can have the same conversation about all these numbers, and we can talk about these stats, and we can talk about women, especially because we have really great numbers for women. Well, not great numbers, but we have really great data on what women are, not being able to achieve in law firms. But at the end of the day, what are you willing to change? And if you haven't been looking at your data, and if you haven't been looking at who is able to succeed and who is rising and why they aren't rising, stop looking at, okay, this is the way to make someone who is a white man succeed. What I need you to look at is, this is the way to make a minority man succeed. This is specifically the way to make a Black man succeed here. Here is the work. This is the way that Latinas succeed here. Be specific, be directed and dedicated, and you can't do any of that until we look at the data. And so that's why, Monica, when we start talking about bias, when we start talking about what policies and procedures are we going to put into place, if we can't start with the data, then it's not going to make a difference with anything, because we are just going to keep putting all these initiatives, throwing them at the wall, and they're not going to change anything because we haven't measured where we started, where we want to go, and how we're going to get there.
That's a little depressing, a lot depressing. Yeah. And I'm thinking of your book in terms of how organizations do good. And I'm thinking also about something Karen Ulrich Stacy shared. She runs the Diversity Lab, and she's recognized several law firms that have signed on to the Mansfield Rule 4.0 for starting this July to emphasize and prioritize diversity alongside client needs and finances. And I know that a big part of that is clients who are much more diverse than their law firms that they hire, demanding to see diversity. Your book talks about organizations doing good. Is there something that's actually working? Because it looks like no, but I'm hoping there must be some bright side to this where we can actually make decisions that will move the needle a bit quicker than 60 years.
Well, I mean, what I love about Karen and what I love about Diversity Lab, I work with them a lot, is because they are trying and they are putting into place initiatives and they are measuring the results of the initiatives. A lot of the reason we don't think things are working is because we aren't measuring them properly. We say, okay, we want equity within, you know, in the partnership ranks, right? Well, what does that look like? If your partnership rank started with one Black woman and she left after 4 years, and so now you have 0 Black women, then in 5 years, you're not gonna have a Black woman ratio that's comparable to whatever the entry level is in law firms. It's not gonna happen because you are starting from 0. So what I would like firms to do, and I think the firms that are successful are doing this, the ones that are measuring the data, the ones that are putting into place programming with specific measurable results. Here's what I'm looking for here. Here's what I'm looking for 2 years from now, 4 years from now, 6 years from now, 10 years from now. People are not widgets. They are not instruments that we can, you know, measure and keep. They are not money. We can't say, you as a person, here's how much money you're gonna make me. But what we can do is to create spaces where we encourage people to stay. And we give them resources and the tools that they need to feel like I am valued, I am respected. The work that I do, it might look different from how you have been doing it for the last 40 years, but look at me and look at what I'm able to bring to the table. If you would like diversity to matter, then let me matter. Let my differences matter. Let how I socialize with clients and how I deliver evaluations and how I collaborate with my team members around this table matter. And the reason I like what Karen's doing and her in-house team that she's put together as the in-house clients who are applying pressure to law firms is that a lot of those names are the biggest in the business and they have the power to make this change happen. And if you start at the top and you have big names broadcasting, we are going to use surveys and we're going to use the Mansfield Rule and we're going to have conferences together and we are going to do the Move the Needle Fund and we are going to try these initiatives. We are going to have sponsorship programs, which is my #1 suggestion for everyone. If we do all of this, then in 5 years, let's measure how me as a law firm did. Let's measure how this practice group did. Let's measure how this particular department did. And that's how we figure out how are we making the change that we need to make.
I led a session for Miss JD last week on cultivating relationships. Awesome organization. I love Danielle Allison and her work. And I think that maybe there's an opportunity during this pandemic where, because we in white collar professions are not going out to network, that we can actually create more power networking from our living rooms across a larger geographic region. And I really encourage everyone to use this time, like you said, to find the sponsors, to find the clients, to find the connections who are going to help you get that next job, promotion, whatever it is that you want to get. And for those who are looking at their ranks and saying, what do we need here? Who do I not know yet? Every time I meet someone who's not already in my immediate group of LinkedIn, if they're like third connection plus, I connect with that person and my network expands drastically and it's incredible. So I try to find people who I don't have any shared connections with and how we can create and collaborate, because that's where my world, my universe expands a lot. And so what I like about what you and Karen have shared is that this the client voice really matters here. Talk to us about that and how that's maybe shaping what we can see in terms of progress.
Well, what's interesting, I think, about the client voice is who went in-house 10 years ago, right? Who went in-house 15 years ago? And if we just look at, say, large law firms, right? For a long time, the people who were going in, we thought big law was, wanted to get to the big law, we wanted a big law partner. And as years gone by, the generations have changed, those values have somewhat, not, but they've somewhat changed. And so what I like about what's happening in-house is that we've had this strong contingent of women and minorities moving in for so many years. And now where in-house is recognizing, and they should be recognizing more, but a lot of attorneys are recognizing the power that they do have. And they have the power to not just, and this is something that Joel Stern at Namwolf talks about a lot, you don't just have the power to pick up the phone and call the large law firm and say, I would like you to staff your this project with, 3 diverse attorneys. You also have the power to pick up the phone and call a minority or woman-owned law firm and say, I have this discrete project that I would like you to start out on. I want to see if we are going to work well together. Let me give you this discrete project. I'm going to, work with you and to figure out, are we a good match? That's not something you necessarily need the largest law firms to do. And that is a great way to increase your diversity, increase your inclusion, increase the work that you do. At the same time, let's go back to the large law firms, because that's where a lot of minorities start and then don't stay. If you as an in-house leader, and I would like all in-house leaders to do this, not just the diverse in-house leaders, all in-house leaders, as an in-house leader, what you're going to do is going to follow up with your law firm and say, especially now, who is staffing on my matters? Who are the people that you're bringing into this team? When you're bringing them into this team, what kind of work are they doing? What kind of quality, worthy work are they doing? And what kind of feedback are you giving them on that work? And so I want them to engage. I want them to follow up. Listen, I feel like one of the challenges, and this is a book, is that we have been so surface with it. We have been compliance focused with it. You need to dive in and create relationships and build those relationships, not just with the people in your organization, but just like what you said, Monica, with the in-house counsel and the outside counsel, working together to figure out how are we going to make a change. So it's wonderful that really great companies and really great organizations are doing like actual policies on billing and actual policies on withholding compensation, whatever. You can keep doing that and that's fine. But really it's about engaging with your outside counsel, finding ways to collaborate. I love what Pfizer's been doing. They've been doing this. Their women have been doing really great conferences where they're bringing in outside counsel and working together to figure out how are we going to get to gender equity in the workplace, our workplace, law firm's workplace, and so on. So continuing to do that kind of work is really what I'm looking for my outside counsel to do. Oh, you've gone on mute. Can you hear me? Monica, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. I had some background. It's garbage day, so I wanted to minimize the noise.
What? How is anything happening? And do you also see the heels that are in your living room? I love that part. That's what
just, the shoes that I never have to wear anymore. And I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, yeah, garbage day.
We're having
how I totally lost my train of thought. Sorry. At the Legal Academy that I hosted at NetUp in February, John Kuo, who's general counsel at Varian, said that he always takes a lunch with a minority attorney in a law firm, because even if he can't work with that attorney right now, he knows that the partner is judging that attorney based on his relationships. And even if it's not now, maybe in a year, or maybe it will help that person with a promotion or with the next deal. And so creating that network is really valuable for general counsel to recognize that they can actually do that and it will matter. Showing up. And then if not your work, then who else can you make an introduction to help that person connect with others who need you?
Yep, absolutely. Picking up the phone, getting coffee, checking in on someone, just making sure that, the partners, the relationship partners, the billing partners, that they know that there is someone who that person has connected with, who they feel like, oh, I want to just make sure that they're staying and they're succeeding. I think that's a great thing and an easy lift for in-house counsel.
Yeah, and I just want to reiterate too that sponsorship is so important, and that can happen so easily.
I spent about 20 pages, I think, in this book talking about sponsorship, because I just think we have, especially in the law firm, I mean, we talk a lot about law firms, so I'll talk about it in the law firm context. The basis of our legal profession is we learn from our elders. We learn from our mentors. It's a practice-based profession, and we are learning from someone else who has been practicing for a long time, and we imitate what they do and their methods and we do that, with, briefs. We also with like merger and acquisitions agreements and all that. And that is how our profession has always been. That's what makes it a profession. And so now we're in this world right now where so much of the success that white men have had in law firms has been because they know each other and they talk to each other, they take each other out to coffee. I know we always use the golf course as an example, but that's an example for a good reason, right? So now we are having more minorities coming in, people who are, again, in that out group. What are we going to do if we are too uncomfortable having those informal conversations and that, oh, it's not just I'm going to introduce you to Bob, the CEO. What I'm really going to do is tell Bob, the CEO, what a great job you are doing. Ask Bob, the CEO, to give you the kind of work I think you need to do to succeed. Really take you to Bob, the CEO's, happy hours and his parties. That's what a sponsor does. And what we have tried to do for so long is to make mentoring this type of sponsor relationship, but mentoring doesn't work. Mentoring isn't going to work on its own. What you need is someone to invest in you. What you need as a minority, especially as a woman minority, is to have someone invest in you, invest in what you're able to bring, invest in your potential, all the things that you talk about with imposter syndrome, with stereotype threat, all the biases that we face, trying to find someone who can champion you and to have you believe in yourself and give you the resiliency to succeed. It is so much more than mentoring. And I really would like, and I talk a lot in my programs about what is it that I need sponsors to do to make sure people succeed. And part of it really comes down to investment requires return. So they are investing in you and you are returning that investment to them and the work that you do and the connections that you make and the networks that you're creating. It is a mutually beneficial relationship. And that's why we need to keep these programs alive.
Mm-hmm. When you started your introduction, Michelle, you talked about just this time and having, I think it's really to hold extra compassion for people right now.
Oh, yes.
Elizabeth Gilbert just gave a great talk on compassion versus empathy and how it's really important to be that person who can help to be strong for someone else. And I see that now with sponsorship, even now more than ever, if you can wake up and say like, okay, I'm going to help one person today. That matters a lot. And if you're that person who needs help, like I'm going to ask one person to help me today and be really specific. Like, this is what I need. And I will say, like, I'm sure you agree, like I am here to help. If people want to leverage my network, just call me.
Right.
Yeah.
I think someone once told me that is what real networking is, right? It's not about getting someone's business card. It's really about how can I help you? How can you help me? But in a way that's not transactional, it's organic. What can I do to make your life easier? And right now, life is not easy. I mean, we're not working from home. We're in a bunker. We're all in our bunkers. We're all trying to survive. We're all worried about getting sick. We're worried about our families and our parents and our children. So many of us are homeschooling.
Doing it like, right?
I mean, no, it's not happening. And like my younger daughter, who's 4, at least I have a 7 and a 4-year-old, and it's, it's a drama every day. But we're all in this world where we are trying to balance all these things. We were never meant to live in these houses for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Those of us with children or pets trying to manage them as well, and also being about what is happening in our world. And so if you are listening and you're saying, oh, I should be doing all these things right now, it's okay. Like, it is okay. Take care of your mental health first. Take care of you first. Be compassionate towards yourself. Be empathetic towards yourself. And if you're a leader who is trying to understand, how am I going to keep managing my teams? And it is hard. I have talked to so many managers and so many partners right now who are just anxious and they are stressed and they don't know what's going to happen next. Have empathy towards you as well. Have empathy towards them. Understand that, it's hard when they want to have a 7:30 a.m. call, because that's when your kid gets up and that's when they start screaming for breakfast. And of course, the teachers just set 26 assignments that you have to look at for the day. And so that's why I want people to have conversations with each other. if your partner or if your supervisor or if whoever your leader is, your manager is saying, I need XYZ by the end of the day, we need to talk to that person and say, I understand that you are feeling pressure from whoever you report to get XYZ done. Can you prioritize what is X, what is Y, what needs to get done, what can we do now, what can we do later? And having those conversations is essential to ensure that we all get crisis together.
Transparency is a life skill, and I
Mm-hmm.
love that you're talking about that. This comes up in most of my coaching calls to some extent, and it's across the board in relationships, with kids, with coworkers. Once a few years ago, I read this article. It came up on my email, and it said how to have the best Mother's Day ever. And I was like, ooh, let's see what that says. And it said, like, tell them what you want. And I was like, oh, duh, right? You may get what you don't ask for, but you more often will get it if you ask for it.
Right.
And this
Right.
transparency of letting people know what you need and what your space is like, and how to create and be successful and thrive is so important. So I want to just challenge everyone to stand up for what you need and let people know how you're working and what your space is like. I think a lot of people
Right.
are doing that, which is really positive. And what we had talked about, Michelle, was the small firms in small towns who are having a lot of luck with recruiting and retaining, sponsoring, championing, mentoring, and being really transparent on the process of promotion to partnership of
Right.
minority lawyers. Tell us more about what's going on there.
So what I work with a whole bunch of different clients. And when I talked earlier about, measuring it by department and by practice group, I really do mean that. There are people who have, hundreds of thousands of employees, right? But if you're measuring diversity progress, you can't measure it with hundreds of thousands of employees. You got to break it down by what is the business unit? What is the department? How are each of those departments succeeding? So what I like about working with smaller law firms, say you have 20 partners and 30 associates, 20 partners and 15 associates, and those kinds of sizes, is that they are small enough to look at it as a whole process, a whole inclusion, a whole community. A lot of larger law firms, for example, divide up their attorneys from their staff. They say that non-attorneys and attorneys, they say business professionals and attorneys, but inclusion is everybody, right? It's everyone in an organization. And so with smaller law firms, what's great about them, from their perspective, is that they can be more transparent if they want to. They do have that sense of community. They have had partners that started when they were associates and have stayed on this whole time. And the work that they do is that they do recognize when they lose out on that, that talented, Black partner that they wanted to bring on, and they lose him to a competitor. Or when they, they feel that hurt, and they feel, they have the clients calling in and saying, we need more diversity, and they look at their ranks, they're not seeing it there. So what I like about them is that they are agile and they are flexible enough to make change happen. Now, from the perspective of that talented Black attorney who left or who didn't start in the first place, what I would like them to know, I think smaller law firms should be telling them, is you come here, we are going to be on you. We are going to support you. We are going to give you that community. Community, autonomy, those are the two things I think are so important when it comes to recruiting and retaining a diverse workforce. Give them the community to have them have that support. Give them the autonomy to design work in the way that is meaningful and valuable to them and the values that they have, their family, their faith, their authenticity, their ancestors, things that really matter. Have them talk about them and bring them to the workplace. And if you're a smaller law firm, it is easier for you to see what that culture is and how someone coming in can change that culture. But really what we want is someone coming in who has different values than you may have been used to, incorporating their values as well. It's all about values. And with a larger law firm, a lot of those minorities get lost and they aren't followed up on. And it's just, a dog eat dog kind of world, and they're supposed to find this on their own. And that community doesn't necessarily exist there. It might exist in employee resource groups, it might exist in affinity groups, but the whole does not feel like a community to them. And so I'm encouraging, especially now, this is when we create the communities. This is when we create that family. This is when we create that system that says, if you are here, I am supporting you because you belong here, and I'm going to make sure that you stay and you succeed here. That is what I want for my large law firms. That's what I want for my medium-sized law firms. That's what I want for my in-house counsel, to create that sense of belonging and community for everyone who comes into your workplace. And to understand that for minorities who are coming into your workplace, they will stay if they feel like they are valued. They will stay if they feel like they are listened to. They will stay if they feel like their work is being done in a way that is useful to the company and helpful to them, and they are seen. And it is such a powerful, belonging is such a powerful feeling and emotion that we need to have. And all of the isms, the racism, the sexism, all of that, we need to create systems in our organizations that tackle all of those. And until we are willing to do that, and that is the hard work that we need to do, then that's why progress sadly remains as stagnant as it does.
That made me feel so good when you said that. And I fully believe in this as my mission for everyone to be seen, heard, and valued. And I think, like, just to really, say that again, like, yes, like, how often do we get someone who says, like, I want you to succeed here. I want you to thrive. I love that you said that so much.
And it's not often. And going back to how we can change systems and bring in different values, just thinking about, why don't we have that in our companies right now? Why don't we have people willing to say that? Why, one of the analogies I raise in my book is how Tom Hanks says there's no crying in baseball. Of course there's crying in baseball. There's no crying in baseball because we have created a baseball system where the people who designed it don't think crying is a valuable thing to do. They don't think it's a good contribution. You stay stoic, you don't say anything, you have a stiff lip. So as we think about what is the system going to look like on the other side of this, as we think about what our systems are going to look like, how do we incorporate other values so that they can matter as well? How can we incorporate how women collaborate with each other? How can we incorporate how Black people, the African-American community communicates with each other? How can we incorporate all these different values across identities, intersecting to make them also feel like they matter in our workplace? The journey is to see us all go on.
Yeah. Some of what I'm hearing you say too is having positive intent and believing that people show up with positive intent. And so the other side of that is the person who shows up and they're awkward in how they address the isms, right? They don't know how to fix it. And then they feel criticized because they did it wrong. And they actually do have positive intent, but they say the wrong things or they're not sure where to start. How do we create space for those people to say, hey, we know you don't know how to do this, but let's talk about it?
Well, first I will say that I don't love the phrase well-intentioned. I think that that's going to put the onus on me. So if you come in and you say something that is racist and that is offensive, then I, as an individual, have to start apologizing to you because you feel bad. And then that makes the whole situation worse. So what I would like the well-intentioned people to think is, your intent, that's important, but think about the impact. Think about the impact of your words. Think about the impact of your actions. Did they offend someone? Yes, that is it. I mean, they don't know your intent. I don't know someone's heart. I don't know if you firmly believe in equality and inclusion, but I do know that you touched my hair. And I do know that when you touched my hair, that was an invasion of my space, and that was an offensive action that you took. So what I need you to do is to understand that if I get angry, accept that. If I feel like teaching you that day, okay, that's great, because I'm someone, I teach people all the time. I will always do that. But we have to recognize that when we do take these actions that do hurt people, the microaggressions, when we do things that, even though we are so well-intended, and even though we believe in our positive beliefs, that the actions that we are taking do have impacts that hurt. And so what I would like to do, and this is something I talk about all the time, I do with my clients, since I do mainly majority white group, is you need to start learning and not leaning on people of color and women to teach you. So do the work and do the research and read the books and listen to the podcast and engage in the learning and watch the TED Talk and understand why certain actions are not the actions that we need you to take. And again, if your intent is good and your intent is positive and you would like to learn and you would like to be better, and you did not understand that what you said did hurt someone, that you didn't understand that that joke that you made about the transgender hire was awful and it was wrong. And if you didn't understand that when you sent around that meme and that joke, that that was a horrible thing to do, I understand that you have good intent and I understand that you think your heart is good, but I look at impact. If you hurt somebody, then apologize and learn from it. And again, this is why that community matters. If we have a space where we have been building a community, where we have people who have been connecting with each other, where we believe that we have spaces where we can talk with each other and come at each other and be honest with what we're struggling with, then it is going to make that learning process so much easier. So when someone you step my foot for the 900th time, because you touched my hair, whatever progression it is, because I know you and because I have a relationship with you and because we have been growing on this journey together, then I'm comfortable talking to you about how we can learn together from that mistake. If we don't have that though, if that doesn't exist in our companies, if that's not existing in our law firms, then yeah, it's gonna be a lot harder. And that's when the resentment and the anger starts about even more.
I'm really glad you said that. And I think that's kind of a call to action for anyone who's listening to this who wants to do better, and listen to Michelle's TEDx, listen to resources online, buy her book that's coming out this summer, buy Minda Hart's book, The Memo, What Women of Color Need to Secure a Seat at the Table. There are so many resources. I'm happy to share more. Michelle's happy to share more. There, you can find out how to impact. I also am thinking of people who are almost there, but not quite, right? So I don't know, I'm going to stumble on my words, well-intentioned, like maybe not displaying microaggressions, but like, okay, I want to do something here, but what's going to make the most impact?
They want to be allies, right? Yeah. That's what we call them. They want to be allies. I prefer the term upstanders, like someone who is, because we talk about allyship a lot in the LGBTQ plus community, and how allyship is not a noun, it's a verb, right? You have to actually take actions to be an ally. You have to take really active engagement. How I like to explain allies is, don't think of it as someone who's a friend who shows up. Think of it like we are at war, like World War II, right? And the allies were the ones who came in and they sent their best people and they stood up and they fought on their allies' behalf. And that is what I want my allies to do. You know, don't speak on behalf of someone, you know, empower their voices to speak, give them platforms to speak. If they're not in the room, speak about them and talk about them. If you would like to, you know, you see the exclusion and you see the discrimination, you see all those isms, think about what space you are in to talk to someone else who isn't seeing that. Think about what space you have, we'll say as a minority person, as a white woman, to go into space I'm not allowed in. And even if I were allowed into those spaces, my voice is not going to be as listened to as yours might be. Because going to the in-group, going back to the peer group, going back to the people who, you know, listen to you, they see you, they see themselves in you. That's what I want for my allies to do, to continually speak up in their own communities, to have spaces where they talk to each other and say, this is what we could be doing better, and this is how we could be helping and how we could be promoting others. And when, you know, when that resume comes in and that person doesn't have the 17 years of experience that we have been demanding all of our people to have, and they only have 14, but you know what, really what happened 2 years ago is we also hired a friend of the CEO's who only had 14 years of experience, but we're definitely not going to hire this person because, you know, that person though, you know, they need the 17 years of experience. So we're not going to make an exception for them because we don't, everything should be fair and equal. Speak up, like speak up when you hear these things, speak up when those situations come up, and use that voice that you have, which is a strong and powerful one, to speak up on behalf of people who bias is excluded success. That is what I'm asking people to do. That's what I want allies to do.
We talked about autonomy, and I wonder, is there greater autonomy now that everyone is working remotely? And how do we create that space to speak up when we're all remote?
I mean, that's a challenge, right? So right now we are all remote, and it depends on who your manager is. So is your manager someone who is willing to, or your direct report, your boss, whoever it is, are they someone who is willing to let you be more autonomous? I mean, it comes down to leadership. Is your manager someone who is willing to say, okay, this is the way we have always done it, but that was was a month ago. Here's the way we are going to try it now. I would like to have given you the parameters. I'm going to allow you to bring your own thoughts, your own conclusions, and then crucially, I am going to listen to you when you do. I think right now, and again, recognizing that all of the struggles and the obligations that people have, and that some people are going to be working 10 times as hard as they were a month ago, and then some people really try to keep the water right now. We are in a space where we can change how work has always been done. And as long as the leaders and the people to who those leaders report to are willing to let that happen. Because if we're not, and this is, we started by talking about layoffs, then you're going to look at my work and say, well, this isn't up to the standard that I expected. And this is not up to the standard that I wanted. So I don't really know if I can fight for you when the decisions are made. So I really want us to go back to having those transparent conversations, having those open conversations, creating a space where, yes, autonomy is welcome, differences are welcome, diversity of perspectives are welcome, how you think about this work differently and the values that you bring are welcome. And if you happen to do it while your 3 children are screaming around you, and this is what you were able to accomplish, then thank you. I am really grateful that we were able to do this.
Yeah, I love that you said that. Just recognizing that there are so many unusual dynamics happening right now from these work from home situations. Mm-hmm. We also talked about the least favorite word in my legal marketing community, the non-lawyer. Oh, and yes. So the inclusion, I don't see this in other organizations. I do see it in law firms. I've been fortunate to work in places where I have felt included and I had a seat at the table, and there's a range for sure in how that plays out and how people who aren't lawyers are perceived in law firms. Talk to us a little bit more about how that inclusivity impacts the organization.
Oh, Monica, what time is it? Hours.
In 4 minutes or less.
And I think it actually goes back to what's happening with layoffs right now. It's it's interesting to me to see that, well, we only laid off staff, or we only laid off, business professionals, or we only cut their salaries, as if they aren't people too, and as if, their work isn't matter and isn't integral as well. So we have this hierarchy in our law firms where it's lawyers at the top, and specifically it's, equity partners at the top, and then income partners, and then counsel, and then associates, and then way at the bottom are the staff. And then in addition to that, a lot of the staff in law firms are Black and brown people. So as a Black and brown woman who's coming into a law firm as a lawyer, and then I look at this hierarchy and I see at the bottom of the totem pole are people who look like me, and why am I going to stay? Why do I feel like this place is inclusive for me? I will say I have so many clients who call me from law firms who say, well, is this just an attorney program? Do you want to divide them? Is it attorneys? Is it staff? And I say, I get it. I get that we do a lot of these programs just for our attorneys. I get that you don't invite your attorneys to your ERG groups. I get that we are so focused on the attorney, wellness, the attorney systems, but your law firm isn't just attorneys, it's everyone. And if we are really focused on inclusion, especially when it comes to race and when it comes to gender, and when it comes to the people who often are at that bottom of the totem pole, who are a lot of women and a lot of minorities, then we really need to do inclusion for everyone. We need to do inclusion for the entire firm. And then the pushback is, well, the partners have different needs, and, that's fine. But should the needs be different for, later workshops? Should the needs be different for later programming? But just for this initial, having podcasts, having lunch and learns, having brown bag discussions, let's bring everyone on board to address, why do we have, going into why the divisions exist in the first place, we need to figure out if we are going to be inclusive, it's not just attorneys and everyone else, it's everyone. We're all in this together.
Yeah, we are all in this together. If we could speak to the 91% white lawyers in law firms and say, there are 3 things that you could do right now to make a difference for the success of the minorities in your law firm, Is it as simple as that, or are there three things? I know we talked about sponsorship and autonomy and transparency. Like in terms of action, because I really believe that if we all have these beliefs and emotions and thoughts around what matters and what works, and those shape how we take action, which leads to results. So what is, I really want to get to like, what is the action? I love challenging people to do something that matters. So let's make it real.
Whenever I do my programs, I spend about half the program doing actual takeaways. Like, here are the actions that you can take starting today. The first one, and we do them for inclusion and we do them for, actual equity, right? So, respecting people, listening to their differences, being self-reflective when it comes to race in your life. Look at your personal life. Look at how integrated or not integrated that is. We talked about our kids, Monica, and trying to recognize, when people call us the nanny or think that we're not our children's parents, are those assumptions that you'd be making as well? So those are the self-reflective exercises that I would like people to make. That said, I have some sponsorship, number 1, data, number 2, 3, look at how you're evaluating people. When you write your evaluations for, whoever's in your group, I want you to go back through those evaluations. Did you use different words and a different tone for the woman? Did you use a different criteria for figuring out whether the women were more successful or the minorities were more successful? Maybe you didn't, and maybe you look at your own writing, you think it's totally unbiased, and then you need someone else to take a look at it. But again, being self-reflective on, were you biased? Was there personal individual bias that you can see in your evaluations? Looking at who you're mentoring, looking at who you're bringing into your circle. Look at who you are planning to follow you in your succession. Who are the people that you are really bringing up behind you? Who are your go-to people? Right now, we are falling so easy into defaulting to our go-to people, right? It's harder for me to, get in touch with someone who I'm not, who's not sitting across the hall from me. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to call up the guy who I'm always comfortable with. I'm going to ask him to do this work for me right now, right? So figure out, who are your go-to people? Are they all people like you? And if they are, then what work can you give to not your go-to person? Can you incorporate someone else who is outside of that out-group into your in-group as well? So continuing on that, being self-reflective, figuring out what are the steps that you as an individual are taking that are not inclusive, and being honest about it. And the bigger role, and this is something that I would love more law firms to do, and this is something I need partners to be involved in because they know this better than anyone else, is competencies. What does it actually take to succeed at your law firm? Is it clear? Is it obvious? Or is there really only a secret path that some people in the in-group know? And the people in the out-group, every once in a while, they get lucky because they worked really hard and they got lucky. So what does it take to be a rainmaker? What does it take to be someone who is successful? Give me the competencies. Tell me what it takes for someone like me to succeed. And then when you do those reviews, when you do those evaluations, when you do those sponsorship programs, when we hire Monica, who's an awesome coach to coach people, have us know what it actually takes to succeed. There are a huge box that exists in law firms, compensation, about partners. Let's make it more transparent. Just like you said, let's make it more open so people can understand and access it. And I need partners to support this and to encourage it and to engage with it. So there's more we can do. We can take people out to coffee. We can introduce them to clients. We can involve them in the good work. We can follow up with them. But really, transparency and autonomy and just having someone, inviting them out to coffee. And then most of all, especially for the work I do on racism and anti-racism, being self-reflective on your own life and your own choices and the choices that you have made in the neighborhoods that it brings you to and the books that you read. How does that help your journey to inclusion?
That's phenomenal, Michelle. Really, it's so excellent. I think that all of us could do better in life if we connected with one person who's not already in our go-to circle and said, how can I help? Thank you for that. Wow. Look for Michelle's book, Make Diversity Matter, How Great Leaders Can Change the World for Good. If you need the statistics to back up the challenge you have in your law firm, call Michelle. If you need training, call Michelle. Really, your work is so great. And every conversation I have with you is so inspiring and helps me reflect more on what I'm doing or not doing and how I can create call to actions for others in my network as well. So I really appreciate you being here.
Monica, I love talking with you. I love the work that you do. I just think that creating a base and creating a law firm and creating a legal profession that is whole and inclusive of everyone is, the goal of my life. And I'm happy to work with you on that forever.
I love that. Thank you. I
All
want to
right.
give a quick shout out to Natasha Allen and Nicole Hatcher, who started their own minority-owned women law firm. And Nicole will be on next Thursday, along with Olga Mack and a couple of others. We've got 2 more webinars in this series of legal wellness and belonging. So check out sparkpluglabs.co to register. And then go to Inclusion Nation to check out Michelle's work, and you can hear more from her online. And do not miss her TEDx talk.
Thanks, Monica. Thanks, everyone. Thank you for listening. Have a wonderful day. Stay well, stay safe, and hopefully I'll see you in person soon.
Thank you so much.